Last night, President Trump tweeted a reminder to Iran not to mess with us. It was in all caps, showing the world that he's not afraid to go all caps. What's next? If you listen to the media, it has to be war. Fact is, Trump was just responding to the Iranian president who warned us about a mother of all wars. Remember the last guy who said that? Yet, predictably, the media freaks out, forgetting that whole North Korea thing, which followed this same pattern. So forgive me if, unlike CNN, I'm not pulling my hair out. So I'll take a war of words over a war of worlds. Now, the media claims this tweet's a distraction from last week's summit. Yet how did that summit hurt Trump? For all the media shaming, he's at 45% approval. That's his highest so far. And we're happier with the country's direction than any time in the last 8 years. This confuses the media as they keep saying that Trump is the worst thing to ever happen since The View. Maybe because they've cried wolf so many times, even Blitzer ignores it. It's the gulf between what the media wants to matter and what actually matters, according to Gallup. In terms of importance to voters, the Russia collusion story rated so small it could barely be measured. It's under 1%. To Americans, Jesse's new haircut mattered more. And it's not even a good haircut. I mean, look at it. Look at it. It's bad. Very bad. Anyway, now the media will say that the tweet means we're all doomed. Not really. It's the mullahs who should be nervous. Meanwhile, on CNN, it's part 200 of the collusion follies. On MSNBC, a primetime end of the world special. On ABC, deep political analysis with Joy. NBC, Lester Holt. And on CBS, some guy. My advice, keep it here. All right, Dana, we're seeing an evolution in tweeting, all caps. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
It didn't start as all caps, but the crescendo.
Yes.
All caps, like he really means it.
Yes.
One thing I thought back to was in April of 2009, I think is when the Green Revolution happened in Iran. That's when the people rose up.
Yeah.
They wanted help from the United States. They did not get it. And so, here we are in 2018. Not that help could have definitely changed things, but they needed more help than they deserved. But I remember at the time, that was really started by Twitter.
Right.
And people on the ground were doing, and the mullahs had no idea what Twitter was. And boy, have things changed, because now they're actually having tweet wars with the president, which can build friendships, because we started out that way.
That's exactly how it starts.
Do you remember?
You and me?
Yes, we had a Twitter war.
Really?
And then I won it. But the other thing is, I would say, I am happy to have the United States and the world talk about Iran for a week.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about Russia a ton. We've talked about North Korea a ton. Meanwhile, Iran does a lot of bad things all around the world, and I think that they're time to call them out on it. I think the other reason they're doing this is that the snapback sanctions happen in 2 weeks, and so the mullahs are about to feel the squeeze. The
mullahs are worried. All right, Juan, isn't this a deja tweet? This is exactly how he began with the fire and fury with North Korea, and the next thing you know, Kim Jong-un is his best pal.
Yeah, that's still, apparently he's very irritated that nothing's come of that, of those talks with Kim Jong-un.
Right.
But I will say this, to me, I'm still struck by the idea he is still among, even though his numbers bumped up in the Wall Street Journal poll to 45%, as you pointed out, still among the lowest of all modern presidents in terms of approval. And I think that when we think about Helsinki and Putin, it's because the Republican base is like a cult with Donald Trump. They just don't budge. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. I was struck, though, by the whole media. See, I see you and Dana saying, oh, it's good. We need to talk about Iran. They're doing this. And I think to myself, I think Donald Trump is outfoxing everybody, because what he's doing is saying, let's talk about NFL players.
But we're not. We're talking about Iran.
No, let's talk about Iran. Let's talk about the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. Let's talk about the FBI break into Cohen's office. Let's talk about tariffs on China. Let's talk about anything.
Nobody talks about that. He talks about that anyway. I don't think he cares. But I also don't think he thinks Helsinki was that big of a deal. Like most of America, Jesse. Most of America is more interested with your strange haircut.
My mother told me to stop talking about my hair, so I'm going to ignore that insult, Greg. I will say this, though. The same Democrats upset with Donald Trump for tweeting all in caps sent Iran billions all in cash.
Oh.
Juan. I'm looking at you.
Well, I'll tell you what I think about that in a minute.
And the caps, it's like, was it Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly, carry a big stick? He speaks loudly and carries a big stick. And that's fine. I think what he's trying to do is say, we're going to respond when you're going to talk trash. He's an ultimate trash talker. And Iran is Putin's puppet. And he's rhetorically blasting Iran, and he's actually bombing their other puppet, Syria. So how is he in cahoots with the Russians?
Such a great.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Katie, this has to do with Russia in a way, I would,
course.
and with Syria.
It has to do with the Middle East as a whole. It has to do with foreign policy as
And
a whole.
Afghanistan.
And Afghanistan. You know, there is now this restructuring going on of the Middle East when it comes to everybody essentially becoming allies in a little bit of a way to go against Iran. And when you look at the, you know, what is being reported as Juan just tried to distract back to with all these other topics that we're not discussing right now, there are very serious things going on in Iran. And although we've been focused on other topics on the surface level with the media in the United States, there are very serious consequences to what could happen there. Inflation is 159% in that country. A third of the Iranian youth are unemployed. And the Iranian regime now is facing the consequences of using all of the money they've been getting from the United States, from the Europeans, and they're spending it on terrorism. And the people there have been protesting for years now because they know that. And if you look at the speech that Secretary Pompeo gave at the Reagan Library, it is very clear that they are not saying we want regime change, but based on the language of standing with the people, talking about maybe putting more sanctions on, threatening back when Iran, by the way, threatens us first, and dealing with the problem that, quite frankly, President Obama did not handle very well.
You know,
I think the venue of the speech was important too.
The
that
Reagan
Pompeo
Library?
gave. Yeah, the Reagan Library.
I'll be there in a
They
few
did that
weeks.
on purpose. I mean, yours will be as impactful.
I think I'd be.
sure that the
I think
Iranians
that,
will
The Middle East depends on it, Greg.
I can change the world. By the way, you know, I have to point out that the Iranian guy also said what's possible is the mother of all peace. Do you think
Right,
that there
well,
was
that's
like?
why I think that I absolutely believe that President Trump will say, why don't we just meet?
Yeah.
Okay, and then imagine when the Republicans lost their minds because Obama was like, maybe I should talk to them. Like, don't you dare do that.
Didn't he try to meet him before already? Didn't?
Yeah, I
Trump-
think there was like letters. Right?
Yeah, a lot of letters. That's it. Here's I want to play a sound on tape from a network. Was it CNN?
Yeah, double N.
Yeah.
They're still a network, right?
Yeah, they are. They're still around. They're hanging by a thread, though. It's about their wag the dog scenario. That this is actually a distraction. Roll it, please.
I don't want to go full wag the dog. But, I mean, we know that the president's strategy.
It's a half wag.
I mean,
It's a half wag.
the
It goes
dog-
to here, not to there. It's very subtle wag.
The president's strategy, he's employed it over and over. We would be foolish not to absorb it and recognize it. When he's embarrassed, as he was last week, he always looks for a distraction.
I don't buy this because he wasn't embarrassed.
Wait, this is the worst wag the dog ever. I mean, Helsinki happened a week ago, and he's been doubling down on Helsinki for a week.
He ordered up another summit.
I know. He should have done this last week if he really wanted to do this. It's also, Rich, talking about wagging the dog with Democrats. I think it was Bill Clinton who bombed an aspirin factory during the Lewinsky testimony. So I think they know a little about wagging the dog.
Oh, so in other words, you're not denying that that's exactly what he's doing.
No, if he had wagged it, it would have been a week ago.
No,
I actually think that it all is in the lead up to these sanctions that are going to go back into place on August 6th, which is only like 12 days away. I think that it's the lead up to that so that people aren't surprised by when the president says we're snapping back these sanctions.
I tell you
goes
what,
to
the big snapback to my mind is when he says he was walking back at the end of last week, I didn't mean to say that the Russians weren't responsible for interference. Sunday night he says, this whole thing is a hoax.
Oh,
this
no.
Russian
Well,
thing
now
is
they
a hoax.
explained that the actual what he's saying when he says hoax. Sarah Sanders said today what he means is that the accusation of collusion, that's
please.
the hoax.
So would or wouldn't? You know what I mean? It's always like something, but he just keeps shifting it, and for some reason, it satisfies the GOP.
Well,
The
I guess
GOP
it depends what the meaning of is.
Oh, yeah, there you go. But the
Getting back to the
Republicans in the
topic.
House and the Senate, they're so afraid of the Republicans who march in lockstep to Trump that they are biting their tongues. But then you see people come
But
out.
they do bite their tongues on Russia.
Oh, they do, big time.
This is
No,
nothing.
not
But,
McConnell
Juan,
and
it's
Ryan.
nothing compared to the cult of Obama. Let's face
Oh,
it.
get
No,
out of here.
for 8 years the media did nothing but Obama's
Oh, yeah.
bidding. So
Yeah,
please.
I work at Fox News. I know we weren't doing Obama's bidding. I'll tell you that.
Well, look, as going back to Dana's point, which is the overall construct of how we're moving forward on Iran. We went through the Iran deal. President Trump got rid of it. There are going to be consequences moving forward for how the administration deals with the regime. And they are obviously looking at the idea of Iran not being able to sustain economically any kind of sanctions or further pressure the United States puts on them because it will lead to regime change, which the U.S. is not officially pushing for, but based on the things that have been said, the pressure that's been put on, Pompeo calling out the leaders by name and saying that they're hypocritical holy men and tweeting in Farsi to the activists on the ground there. This is an overall strategy for the administration. It's not just a distraction from Russia, because we've been dealing with this even before Trump became president on the campaign trail.
Does anybody like the mullahs in Iran? I mean, the people. I mean, how much sway do they have?
Well, I think that with the military, right?
Yeah.
So that they get the goodies, right? And so if you're,
Yeah.
it's just a typical dictatorial regime. But I think the other thing that we forget is that in Afghanistan and in Iraq in particular, Iraq is actually doing much better from a law and governance standpoint, but Iran is causing additional problems, and they're moving into Afghanistan.
And I think you forget, though, that there's a counter to the U.S. sanctions. I think U.S. sanctions, Katie, are going to have cause some pain for the Iranians. But don't forget, the other parties in what was a 6-party agreement on the Iranian deal are still in it, still doing business.
And they're propping up a terrorist regime that funds more terrorism around the world.
But I'm
than
not
any other
arguing that
country.
point with you. I would agree that they are terrorists. But I would say this, that
So let's
the
keep
U.S.,
giving them money?
by
Like,
the
what do you mean?
United States acting unilaterally, we are becoming more isolated and weaker on the world stage. We should have our allies with us going against the Iranians. We shouldn't be separated out so that we can be identified by the mullahs as just the big bad Americans who think they're going to run the world.
Okay, so do you think the president's tweet was strong or weak?
I think it was a
it all caps
distraction from all
strong, or
his
was it
trouble with the Russians in Helsinki. He
So
doesn't
wait, we
do
want
that.
to
though
pull
it was a
back,
response.
yet we want to run the world.
No.
How is that possible?
Oh, because we talked.
It's leading from
Boasting
behind.
and
That's
bullying.
what he's trying to do.
Oh,
Lead
yeah.
from behind.
If he was that subtle, I would tip my cap to him.
You'll be tipping your cap soon. All right, the president looking to strip security clearances from top anti-Trump Obama intel officials. That's the latest next.